Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to the class of Advanced Research Methodology. This is our third class, and today's topic is research method versus research methodology. Research method and research methodology are two different things. What is the difference between research method and research methodology? We'll start with what research method is. A research method is a way of conducting and implementing research. So it's a way to conduct and to implement research. That is a research method. Research methodology is the study behind all research. In other words, research method is part of research methodology. Research methodology is more general than research method. So, for example, your whole thesis is your whole thesis is more general than your chapter 3. So, research method is a specific chapter on the research. So research methodology is more general than research method. Research methodology is the study of how research is done. So in research methodology, we want to know how we know what we know. We want to know how we know what we know. And research methodology allows us to understand the constraint placed on our concept of knowledge. Because in order to have the concept of knowledge, you have to have the proper method of obtaining the knowledge. So this is very important because we know by learning research methodology, we know how the findings or the knowledge or the answers can be created. We have to have the proper way to conduct the research. So if we understand research methodology properly, when someone presents to us new findings, we will be able to know whether what they are doing is correct or whether what they are doing is wrong. So the concepts that underpin the subject of methodology also enable us to be critical and analytical in the face of knowledge, findings, or evidence presented to us. So we don't have to accept whatever new findings that are presented to us. We can be critical. We can ask, how do you get the new findings? So in order to understand that, we have to understand the concept of methodology. The whole purpose of research is to extend and deepen our knowledge of the world. In other words, to extend the boundary of knowledge, to extend the existing boundary of knowledge. So we have to be critical of how the new knowledge is obtained. Approaches to business and social research. There are two types of research. One is called quantitative research, and the other one is called qualitative research. Quantitative research refers to the type of research which is based on methodological principles of positivism, and it adheres, it follows to the standards of a strict research design, which is developed before the collection of the research. So in quantitative research, it's very important that research design is formulated correctly. You have to have the strong theoretical framework of your study. You have to design how you're going to collect data, how you're going to analyze the data, and how you're going to go and collect the data and analyze the data in order to get your findings. So in quantitative research, it's very important that you have a proper, strict research design. Okay. So in quantitative research, it is involved with quantitative measurement. There are numbers, there are mathematical measurements, and there are statistical analysis. You might have to use certain statistical software like Excel, SPSS, PLS, etc. So quantitative research is used in almost every area: economics, finance, social science, business, sociology, philosophy, and so on and so on. On the other hand, qualitative research uses a number of methodological approaches based on diverse theoretical principles. And principles such as phenomenology, social interactionism, case studies, etc. So in qualitative research, yes. Please ask questions.
I can see your slide. I can see your slide.
You cannot see the slide?
Yeah.
Faiza, can you see the slide?
It is in the book, research method.
Okay, I share the slide. I share the slide.
Oh, you share. No, I didn't see the slide. I'm referring to the book.
Yes, I'm using the book as the presentation. I'm using the book. I don't use PowerPoint. Is that your question? Can you? I share the screen.
Page 6, research method.
I share the screen. Can you see the screen? The textbook. Faiza, can you see the screen?
Yeah.
So what is your question?
No.
Okay. So you asked the wrong question. Okay, any other question? Any other question? Next time I will use PowerPoint because I haven't got time to do the PowerPoint, so I'm using this textbook. All right. Okay. So qualitative research employs methods of data collection and analysis that are non-qualitative. There are no numbers involved. So your data will be in the form of words or observation or pictures or sketches or any other form. It doesn't involve any numbers, no mathematics, no statistics in qualitative research. So qualitative research tries to explore social relations, the behaviors of people, and describes reality as experienced by the respondents. For example, a qualitative researcher might go into a village and observe the behavior of the group of people in that society. So a qualitative researcher can be a passive observer, observe the behavior, the interactions of people in a certain group, and just simply record what he or she observes. So there is no statistics, no mathematics, no quantitative analysis for qualitative research. Okay, any question on the difference between quantitative and qualitative research?
Yes, I want to ask Doctor.
Yes, please. Mr. Hamza, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you, Doctor?
Alhamdulillah. You're driving?
No, they're driving me. There's a Wakaf project I was working on, and the time caught me, but I'm following on in the car. Here,
Okay,
you
good.
mentioned about the three research designs that follows qualitative research, but I missed them. I think my network didn't catch up well. The three
Okay.
under qualitative research.
Yes, it's called phenomenology, hermeneutics, and social interactionism. We will talk about these principles of qualitative research in later lectures. So this is just the third lecture. So we will not go into detail. There's a specific chapter in week number 9 on the principles and methods of qualitative research. Inshallah, we'll go into more detail on qualitative research in week 9. We are now in week 3. Very good question. So what I want to emphasize today is qualitative research does not need any theoretical framework, does not need any theory. For qualitative research, a researcher has no prior expectation, no prior framework, no prior hypothesis. It goes, the researcher, the qualitative researchers go into the situation, go into the field. For example, he or she goes into a village and observe a certain phenomena without having any prior expectation. No theoretical framework, no hypothesis, no theories. Just go collect the data, analyze the data, and come up with the findings. And from the findings, a qualitative researcher will form his or her hypothesis. On the other hand, quantitative research, researchers in quantitative research have to have a strong research design, a strict research design, which explains, which consists of theoretical framework, which consists of hypothesis. Then the quantitative researchers will go and collect the data, analyze the data, get the findings, and test whether the data accept or reject the hypothesis. So the process is the other way around. Am I clear? Any question? If if I'm confusing you, please ask question. If you don't ask question, it means two things. Either you understand everything or you don't understand anything. Which one? Faiza? Faiza? You understand everything or you don't understand anything?
I think I understand.
Cik Fiza, how many participants we have? Only 4?
3.
Only 3. Cik Fiza, how are you? Okay, you okay?
Okay,
Any question?
not yet.
Okay. So let's go to pure and applied research. In a pure research, pure research tries to expand the boundary of knowledge. So in order to do pure research, you have to know the boundary of knowledge. The boundary of knowledge means what we already know about a certain topic or a certain subject. So pure research tries to expand or widen the boundary of the existing knowledge. We want to understand more. We want to go to where no one has gone before. We want to get the knowledge that no one has known before. So pure research evaluates the existing concepts, the existing theories, the existing hypotheses, the existing evidence, and tries to expand or widen the boundary or the limits of existing knowledge. We want to know more than what we already know. So in pure research, we want to support or reject the existing theories about the real world. In universities, okay, there are researchers which try to contribute to extend and to expand and to improve the current theories. And usually, pure research is quite expensive, and it's usually carried out by the government. Some pure research costs the government millions of ringgit, and this research projects are carried out by university lecturers. Okay. And after we finish carrying out the pure research, there might be or might not be any commercial value. For applied research, it's different. Applied research is conducted when a decision must be made about specific real-life problem. For applied research, you must have a real-life problem. For example, a business is going bankrupt. That is a problem. And applied research is carried out, for example, to understand why the business is going bankrupt, why the sales is going down, and what are the strategies to turn around the company. So there must be a real life problem. In pure research, you don't have to have real life problem. Problem in pure research is the research gap. Research gap means what we don't know and what we want to study, which are of significance to us in expanding the boundary of knowledge and in using it in the policy makers, in using it to guide and to help strategize and implement certain policies. Are you okay? So, applied research, you must have a real life problem. Okay. Are you familiar with action research? Action research is a type of applied research. So in action research, it is the application of fact-finding to a practical, real problem solving in a social situation. So you must have a real life problem solving in a real social situation with a view to improving the quality of action within it, involving the collaboration and cooperation of researchers, practitioners, and also laymen. So action research is actively involved in planning and introducing changes in policy. And the researchers use their research expertise to monitor and possibly to evaluate its effect. So that's why action research is sometimes called evaluative research. Okay, I'll stop there for questions. It looks like you are all confused. If you're all confused, it's good. Oh, I want you to be
Okay,
confused.
Can I ask something, Doctor?
Sure, go ahead, please.
Okay. I've understood well the pure research,
Yes,
the applied research,
yes.
but I need to differentiate for me between applied research and action research about a problem. Because here, there should be real life problem on applied research. But what's the difference between action and pure and applied research
Very,
regarding problem solving?
very good question. Um, applied research is a type of research that is in general needs a real life problem to be solved. So the main objective of applied research in general is to find a real life problem in order to find the solutions. So in applied research, you have to have, number one, you have to have real life problems. Then from the real life problems, you will go and find the data, and then you analyze the data, get the findings, and from the findings, you are trying to answer the research questions that you put. So that is the applied research. So you have to have the real life problem to be solved. If you're writing a thesis using applied research, your problem statement must have the real life problems. Your examiner will ask you, what is your problem? So you have to explain to the examiner what the problem is. The problem here refers to real life problems. So in applied research, you have to have a strong, especially at PhD level, you have to have a strong real life problem. For example, real life problem. Because of COVID-19, the collection of zakat is on a decreasing trend. And because the collection of zakat is on the decreasing trend, because some people, some zakat payers are not able to pay zakat because some of them might lose their job, some of them might have to take the pay cut. So previously they were able to pay zakat, now they are not able to pay zakat. So you have to start with real life problem. Then from the real life problem, you formulate the research questions, and then we try to design a research which can help to answer the research questions. So that is the applied research. Action research is one type of applied research. Action research is the application of fact-finding to practical problem solving in a situation in order to improve the quality of action within it. So in action research, you have to have the real life problem, and then you have to design a research to answer your real life problem. The aim is to improve the quality of action, because in order to solve the problems, there are many alternatives. So in action research, the important thing is to find an action which is of the best option. There are many types of actions, but we want the quality or the best of action. So that is called action research. So in action research, you need to plan and you need to introduce a guidance in order to plan the strategy, in order to strategize and implement the new strategy based on the findings. So in action research, it involves the research expert in order to monitor and evaluate the effects of the action. Okay. Mr. Hamza, is it okay so far? Okay. So action research is an applied research, but it involves choosing the quality of action. And this is done by the expertise in the field. Faiza, Miss Faiza, have you done any action research in school?
Not yet.
Oh, kajian tindakan.
Not yet.
Okay. So usually the principals in schools require certain teachers to do the action research in order to choose the best or the quality action, tindakan, the best action or the best quality action that should be taken in order to plan, strategize, and implement certain policy. And the policy is a top-down decision given to you by the school and by the Ministry of Education. Okay, any other question? Now we want to jump to page 40. Let's jump to page 40. The research cycle. In order to do research, there are steps or cycle. Okay, can you see? This is called the research cycle. Okay, the first step when you're doing research is to formulate. In this process, you need to have the what we call theoretical or conceptual framework of the study, or at least you need to have some form of relationship. Okay, and how do you formulate your hypothesis? So the key stage is the initial understanding of the problem. Before you do research, you have to know your topic. In other words, you have to know in quantitative research, you have to know your dependent variable. All right? And then you have to know the explanatory variables or the independent variables. So how do you come up with this relationship? Mr. Hamza, how do you come up with the relationship? How do you formulate the relationship?
Okay, thank you, Doctor. I think as you've mentioned, you have to know your problem. First, you have to know what if you have a problem about non-Zaka payment, you have to know that what Zaka payment depends on a specific factors.
Right.
If these factors are not met, then there will be a problem of not paying Zaka.
Yes.
So I think Zaka becomes a dependent variable, if I'm not wrong,
Yes.
and then those factors become independent variables.
Correct.
And
You're right.
I stand to be corrected.
Yes.
And
that's
then I
good.
think if you want to expand, you might look also at other interjecting variables, because there are other factors that would, besides the dependent and independent variables, sometimes there are other factors that could interject or explain
Yes.
the process.
Exactly.
Yes, that's what I understand.
Yes. Very good, Mr. Hamza. That's exactly
Yes.
what it is. So my next question is, how do you formulate or how do you form the relationship? I mean, what are the independent variables that you want to put? And what is the dependent variable that you want to put? How do you choose your dependent variable and your independent variable? How do you choose? What is your dependent variable? How do you choose? What are your independent variables? How do you choose? Mr.
That's my
Hamza?
question.
Yes, go ahead. My next question is how?
The,
How do you get your dependent variable and how do you get your independent variables? How do
I
you?
need your help, doctor. There, I need your help practically.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Miss Fiza,
Yes.
Miss Fiza, how do you put your variables into your framework? How do you know? How do you choose your variables? Miss Fiza?
I asked the questions about my topics.
Yes.
I can find the IV.
Okay, my question is, how do you choose your IVs? What are your IVs and how do you choose your IVs? That is my question.
My IV independence. My IV is do you know my topic, right?
What is your topic?
The importance of management system online to entrepreneur.
Okay.
So the DV is management system online.
Okay.
Online management system. The
Okay.
IV is low risk data, unlimited customer, and to able to manage the data better.
Okay.
Is it right?
My question is, how do you choose your DV and your IVs? Is it simply coming out of your head or you got from somewhere? That is my question. How do you choose? From which?
I think.
From your own head. Oh, you are brilliant. Okay, let me tell you something. In order to formulate your theoretical framework of your study, it cannot come from your head. You have to refer to previous studies. You have to read
Okay.
articles. You have to read books. You might have to refer to previous thesis or previous research done in your area. Then, once you get the theoretical framework of the studies, of previous studies, Okay, then you can formulate your own theoretical framework. Okay, for PhD, Ms. Fiza, you doing masters or PhD?
Master.
Okay, you're doing masters. For masters, okay, maybe it's easier. You take the theoretical framework of the previous studies and you use the framework to develop the hypothesis, and you can apply and do a research on different environments or different places. For example, this example, there are some studies who try to study the what is your DV? The the managerial. Go ahead. The importance of
management system online.
management system online. Okay. Find the previous studies on management system online. All right. And then try to find the framework that have been used by previous studies. The previous studies refer to previous research, previous thesis, previous dissertation, previous articles, journal articles. Okay, you have to refer to the previous studies to
Okay.
guide you to choose the theoretical framework. So you need to formulate the relationship using a certain framework. Okay. So my question was, how do you get the variables? How do you choose your variables? The answer is you have, in order to choose your dependent variable and your independent variables, whether you want to use mediating variables or moderating variables, you have to refer to what? The previous studies, previous research, previous dissertation, previous thesis, previous journal articles in order to help you guide. So if someone asks you, why do you put X as your independent variable? Your answer is, I include X as one of my independent variables based on the studies by John, Adam, Yusuf, okay, based on the previous studies. You cannot simply put the independent variable out of your head. You cannot say, I put it because I like the variable, or I think the variable is suitable. No, it must be on the previous study. The justifications must be on previous studies. So that is the first step, to formulate the relationships. The second step is to generate hypotheses. In this step, you need to review a few journal articles or a few research or a few theses in order to develop hypotheses. For example, okay, let me show you. Okay, this is my, for example, this is called theoretical framework of the study. This is compliance behavior is called dependent variable. Intention is called mediating variable. Attitude, subjective norms, perceived behavioral control, moral obligation, These are called independent variables. And Islamic religiosity is the moderating variable. So, how or why do we choose this variable?
I can see the books.
Oh, I will give to you later. So this is from my thesis. So I'll give it to you later. Now we want to understand the concept. So this is the dependent variable. All right. Okay. How do we choose which variable to include in the framework? This is done by referring to previous studies. All right. So this is based on the theory of planned behavior. It's okay if you don't understand the theory of planned behavior. We just want to understand the theoretical framework. This is how it looks like. This is how theoretical framework looks like. What I want to emphasize here is that these variables are included based on the previous studies. We cannot simply put variables that we like. Of course, we have to choose. Our choice depends on or is justified by other studies. For example, I say the theoretical framework is adopted from Eisen, Camille, Dano, and Ram al-Jafri, and also based on deductive reasoning. This study uses deductive reasoning to expand the theoretical framework and to add new variables to the theoretical framework as suggested by Cajalotto, Matila, and Pento. Okay? So then, after that, you have to generate the hypothesis. How do you generate hypothesis? Okay, after you write the theoretical, oh, never mind. Now we go to thesis or hypothesis development or hypothesis hypothesis development or generation of hypothesis. Okay. In order to develop or generate hypothesis, you have to also refer to previous studies. So hypothesis development of attitude. So we need to write why attitude. Okay, for example, my hypothesis, attitude towards compliance behavior of income zakat has a significant positive influence on the intention to pay income zakat. So this is the attitude. Attitude has influence on the intention. Okay.
Doctor,
Yes.
Doctor,
Yes.
I think, can you share your slide with us?
Which slide?
I mean, your
This is.
thesis.
Yes.
Yeah.
Later, inshallah, I will
Oh,
give you my
okay.
thesis. But
Okay.
don't copy paste.
No, no.
Okay, I will give your thesis later, after class. Okay. And I will give several other theses also that you can refer. Okay, so what I'm trying to explain here is you cannot simply write. Attitude has influence on intention. You cannot simply write. Most students, they simply write. This variable has influence on this variable. You have to be able to develop and generate the hypothesis. Means you have to refer to some other work. For example, I said, Eisen established that there was empirical evidence supporting relationship between attitude and intention. Previous studies such as blah, 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 tested the influence of attitude on intention and provided evidence in support of the influence of intention. Therefore, this study predicts that these teachers who has positive attitude are more likely to develop strong intention. This is the hypothesis. Attitude has a positive influence on intention. So this is how you generate. You need to read a few journal articles. You need to refer to the previous studies. Not much, not much. At the initial stage, not much. 4 or 5 article journals. All right. So let's go back. We formulate the relationship, we generate the hypothesis. From our hypothesis, we need to collect the data. Okay, in order to collect data, you have to ask yourself what kind of data that you need. Is it primary data or secondary data? Primary data is the data that you collect for your own purpose. You collect the data which answers your research problem and which answers your research questions. Okay, those are the primary data. The primary data. How do you collect primary data? There are many ways. There are many methods. One is by using survey method. For example, a researcher can use questionnaire. This is very common among students. Students use questionnaire in order to collect the data. We will discuss more in the chapter of population and sampling in questionnaire. Okay, so the data that we collect must be able to answer our research questions and research problems. The second type of data is called secondary data. Secondary data is the type of data collected by other people to answer their research problem and their research objectives. But you or researcher can use the secondary data also to answer your research question and research problems. So it depends on your research questions and research problems. What type of the data that you need. Okay, so in this case, suppose you have this framework. Okay, you can use questionnaire and send out to your respondents. If you want to use the questionnaire, remember your hypothesis. For example, the first hypothesis is attitude has significant and positive influence on intention. So you have to have the questionnaire which contains the items. We call the items in this attitude construct. Each of the boxes here we call variables, or sometimes we call constructs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 constructs. In each construct, there are items. Items are questions that researchers ask the respondents. So in order to measure attitude, you have to ask questions. So we will talk more on that topic later. How do you formulate your items? How do you construct your items? So the construct, the construction or formulation of items must pass through several tests, such as test of validity and test of reliability. We'll talk more on that later. Okay, so you collect the data. Then from the data, you explore the data. Explore data means analyze the data. You can use SPSS, you can use PLS, you can use any statistical software. So, and there are statistical tools that you need to study, understand, and use. For example, you can use a regression analysis. That is an easy one. Maybe master student can use regression analysis. And a more complicated statistical analysis is, for example, structural equation modeling. Maybe Faiza wants to use structural equation modeling, SEM. So using a certain statistical technique, we'll be able to analyze and explore the data and come up with the findings or the new knowledge or the new empirical facts, we call empirical evidence. Okay. Next, after we explore the data, we'll be able to come up with our findings and we'll come up with the model that we want to propose. After we come up with the model, okay, after we come up with the findings, it will give the model, and then we will test whether our findings reject or support the hypothesis. And so this is called the implementation or monitoring phase. We want to test whether the evidence or the findings that we obtain satisfy or accept the hypothesis, or if it rejects the hypothesis. And next is the cell solution. In the cell, the solution phase, we want to be able to explain to the stakeholders, in your case, to your supervisor and your examiner, of how you achieve your findings, how you come up with your model, and how it works. In the real world, people will sell solution by presenting the evidence to the stakeholders, for example, to the sponsors and to certain government organizations and policymakers, and explain to them how the model can be used to guide them in order to plan, strategize, and implement new policies. If you're lucky, you will get paid. Or if you're lucky, you can sell the product and earn lots of money. But that's not necessarily what we want to achieve. The most important is we are able to communicate with others about our model and how the model can be applied. Okay, so in summary, the main research stages are: number one, specify the real problem, investigation purpose, including hypothesis. Number two, set up a model from theory. Break the problem into parts. Okay, you have many problems. For example, in this case, there are many determinants, so you want to break them into parts. And then select variables, make sensible assumptions, determine the limits of validity. And then formalize the model. In quantitative research, you might want to use mathematical or statistical version of the problem, if appropriate. For example, you use the word significant. Significant signifies statistical version, because you can test whether the relationship is statistically significant or not. And then find the relationships involved, find a functional form. Step number 4, solve the problem. Choose appropriate techniques. For example, regression model or simultaneous equation model or any other techniques that you want to use. Amend the model and or change its approach if needed. Interpret the results. Does step 4 make sense in terms of step 1? So you have to align step 1, formulation of your hypothesis, with step 4, to choose appropriate technique. The techniques that you use, is it appropriate in order to answer your hypothesis? Okay, if not, why not? So you need to be able to justify. Validate the model. Unit 2SO. Next step is validate the model. How realistic were the initial assumptions? What if one or more were changed? More refining needed at what cost? If yes, and it is affordable, then back to step 2. Usually, if we have a strong theoretical framework, we need not have to go back to step 2. Hopefully, we don't have to go back to step 2. 7, generalization. Can the model and results be generally applied to this class of problem? If yes, then a contribution to knowledge has been made. Yes, congratulations, you are done. If no, then a major problem has occurred somewhere along the line. Step number 8, report the findings. And your congratulations, you are done. You can bind your thesis, and now you are a doctor, Dr. Faiza Harun, after you finish step number 8. Okay, any questions? Any question?
Doctor,
Yes,
Doctor.
any question?
We usually have qualitative and quantitative mode for research. Do we have, I mean, combination between quantitative and applied research, or we don't have that?
Yes, very good question. Now there is a trend among PhD students to do a mixed method. A mixed method means a combination of quantitative and perhaps qualitative methods. For example, they want to combine the SAM, simultaneous equation modeling, with interview, for example. So the interview is reported, analyzed as qualitative method because there is no numbers. They just report the spoken word of the respondents, and they combine the interview to complement the findings based on quantitative methods. At PhD level, sometimes it happens the PhD candidate did quantitative method, and then he went to Viva. In the Viva, sometimes it happens, the examiner suggested that the candidate complement the quantitative findings with, for example, interview. So sometimes the PhD candidate need to do the mixed method if he or she is asked by supervisor or by examiner. So usually it is good to have mixed method because it can complement each other. But in some cases, it is not necessary. If, for example, quantitative method is enough to answer the research questions and research objectives, then there is no need to do mixed method. We can use the rule of parsimony. If it is enough, then why do more? If one plate is enough to fulfill our empty stomach, why we need to eat 2 plates of chicken rice? So that's my answer. Okay, any other question? Okay, if there is no question, then that's all the class for today. I will stop recording